And good morning. Thanks for joining me. I'm looking through my notes. I'm finding a little announcement I want to make sure that I get across to you on the Common Core, but we're going to take a little bit different avenue today. It's the day before Thanksgiving, and we want to make sure that we take time out to be thankful, to remember the heritage of this holiday. It is a uniquely American holiday, not that all of us shouldn't be thankful, but when I've interviewed guests from Canada and other countries, they say it's just not nearly as big in other countries as it is here in America. And one of those reasons, I think, is this country was one of two that I know founded on a covenant with God. Israel and America are the only two countries I know founded on such a covenant. And I think we've seen the blessings because of that upon our nations. And so Ryan Northfield is our producer today. And Ryan, if you would, let's go first to the Mayflower Compact, because that's kind of the beginning for our country. And so what we have is a drive-through history from David Barton. And let me just update while Ryan's bringing that up. David Barton was here Saturday night. The family leader brought him in, and he spoke on Common Core. So he had a room of 200 Iowans learning about Common Core. It was exciting to see so many people caring and getting involved in this issue, and we'll have an update on Common Core shortly. And then he spoke about our heritage as a Christian nation and the reawakening and what impact it had on America's beginning and our independence, and actually giving men the courage to stand against a tyrant and an unruly king. Ryan, do you have that? Let's go ahead and go to that drive-by history. We're just going to show a segment of David Barton's drive-through history on our Mayflower Compact.
When the Pilgrims finally reached America, not only were they really late, but they were in the wrong place. They had landed far to the north of Virginia. This was a big deal because this was not where the land patent stated they were to settle, and it meant that winter would soon be upon them, and they were low on food and supplies. Before disembarking, the Pilgrims would sign the Mayflower Compact. The Pilgrims knew that some earlier settlements in the New World had failed due to the lack of government. The Mayflower Compact was a social contract in the form of a sacred covenant sworn before God, in which the settlers stated their purpose for coming and consented to follow the rules and regulations of the government for the sake of survival. The government, in return, would derive its power from the consent of the governed. The short little agreement is often referred to as the very foundation of...
And thanks, Ryan. You can go ahead and shut that off. Thank you for showing that. That is David Barton's drive-through history. If you homeschool, that's a great resource for it to use, and a little more honest, accurate history than I think you might be getting with those textbooks aligned with the Common Core. We're seeing those assignments come out, and parents are angry. They're amazed that propaganda is coming through our public schools like we've never seen it before. Just an update on the Common Core issue, if I can. One of our individuals here in Iowa, one of the activists who took the time as an engineer, took the time to go through and study the aligned curriculum, the Common Core aligned math curriculum for a 6th grade class. And when she took it to the school board, they obviously had not read it near as well or as much or as thoroughly as she had. She was appalled. She said, we will not be able to have people coming into her field for her own career. She wanted to make sure that people were able and ready. And she's now volunteering, mentoring students because she says the math is so, so poor. But she got a text yesterday from the Iowa Department of Ed that the governor's executive order did not dismantle Iowa Core. We've been concerned about this, and what they're saying is that it's Iowa Core, not Common Core. Ask, if you will, just ask those in the office what is the difference? How does Iowa Core look different from Common Core when it's implemented into our school systems? A very fair question. And in the meantime, we have language coming out of Ohio. Representative Andy Thompson, who I believe went to Central College right here in Iowa, has introduced a bill to repeal the Common Core standards in that state. So I'm now hearing and reading that 1 out of 3 states is coming against at least one or all of the parts of Common Core as parents find out in how incredibly invasive, intrusive, overreaching it will bring the federal government right into your classroom, and you as a parent will be omitted from the process of choosing the curriculum for your kids and having any input. I'm going to now, boy, I just took right off on that Common Core, didn't I? It's invasive. That's exactly what it is, just like a cancer. It's just invasive. Well, I want to get to our guests, but I wanted to talk just briefly about that Mayflower Compact right here. I brought it in with me. This is my framed Mayflower Compact, and no, I don't have it on my wall all the time, but I put it out every Thanksgiving. It's right along the food line at my house, and I want everybody to remember what this day was actually about. And if I may, in the name of God, amen, we whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord King James, by the grace of God of Great Britain, France, Ireland, King of Defender of Faith, having undertaken for the glory of God an advancement of Christian faith, and the honor of our king and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these present solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together with the civil body politic for a better ordering and preservation and furtherance of the ends aforesaid. And it goes on, but you can't very well deny that this country was founded upon God and biblical principles when the very first document that they wrote before they ever got off a crowded ship, after having been stuck in a cabin with not a very high ceiling and no windows and a lot of sickness and a lot of illness and a lot of death, and yet they didn't just hop off and get on land and say, we'll fix it there, before they ever got off that ship. They made sure that they gave glory to God. And so why do we celebrate Thanksgiving? George Washington, our first proclamation on Thanksgiving, a national day of thanksgiving and prayer to the Almighty God, and maybe we'll come back to that at the end of the show as a good reminder. I want to jump to our guest. Joining me in studio, I don't get to have guests in studio very often, so I'm very thankful that you're here. Roger McEowen, and am I saying that not correctly? McEowen?
McEowen.
McEowen.
Mm-hmm.
He is a director of ISU, Iowa State University Center of Agricultural Law and Taxation. And just in this little brief time since he's been in the studio today, I'm so thankful that you're there, and I'm thankful that you're doing 80 to 100 seminars annually across the United States for farmers, agricultural business professionals, lawyers, and other tax professionals, which is a full-time job with our tax code, I would guess.
It's a very full-time job.
And if you want more information, you can look on the Center for Law and Taxation on Iowa State's website. Just do a search, and Roger McEowen, MCEOWEN, will come right up. And we're going to be talking today about Obamacare, the tax laws, how it's going to impact us. But joining us by phone, I have two experts. Mario Diaz. He serves as Concerned Women for America and as their legal counsel, and he's been with them for 12 years. He leads the legal studies in the core issues pertaining to Concerned Women for America. He is a constitutional scholar. So, Mario, thank you for joining us by phone.
It is great to be with you, Tamara, and with Roger. Great to be with you.
All right. Well, let's just start into this muddled mess called Obamacare. And honestly, I keep coming back to Common Core, but it is the Obama core of education, and it will be every bit as much as a muddled mess as we're finding with health care. I guess, Roger, let's start with you. When they unveiled the mess that we now see and the launch on the website, maybe that was the visible illustration that Americans needed to see that this was not a well thought out plan, and it's more than the website that's an issue.
Yeah, I think that probably is a fair statement because it has woken up a number of people that weren't paying attention from the beginning. For those of us that look at the details of this, I read the legislation as soon as it was out. We published our detailed article on all the tax provisions 5 days after the bill was signed into law. And immediately, I'm also an economist by training, and this is a math problem. This will never work. You can't force insurance companies to cover everybody and tell them they can't raise premiums without them making massive additional payments to the medical community. That means policies will get canceled. That means premiums will skyrocket. That means employers will be forced to pay more. They won't pay more. They'll cut expenses, which means jobs. The math on this will never work, particularly when you have a non-enforceable or an unenforceable penalty for not buying mandated insurance. At the same time, Congress stripped the IRS of all their enforcement mechanisms. They can't levy. They can't issue criminal penalties. All they can do is withhold a refund. And so nobody's going to pay. Nobody that's thinking is going to pay the additional cost to pay the premiums to buy the government-mandated health insurance. They'll just take the fine, maybe pay the fine. It is very minimal. It'll be obviously less than the premiums, but since it's not enforceable, they'll just adjust their withholding so that they are not do a refund, and the IRS can't penalize them. They can't enforce that. So this is a system that is doomed to fail, regardless of whether the website is fixed or not. It's just a simple math problem. That's not a political statement. That's a math statement. Whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Libertarian, you're not exempt from math. And that's the problem with this whole issue.
All right. And one of the issues that you brought to it, and there are so many facets of this that it's hard. I'm trying to stay focused because we could go down 1,000 different bunny trails. Mm-hmm. But one of the issues you brought to light, and we're dealing with very real ways, is the religious liberty issue. Mm-hmm. We've seen it with Hobby Lobby. Mm-hmm. We've seen it with the Catholic Church and the mandate. You have another aspect that most people had not thought about, and that is simple tax filings for pastors and parishes who have what we call parsonages. Mm-hmm.
That's a separate issue. That's not part of Obamacare, but just last week we had a federal district court in Wisconsin that struck the cash allowance, a part of the parsonage exclusion, as unconstitutional. Section 107 of the Internal Revenue Code has two parts to it. One is if the church provides a parsonage to a minister, they can provide the minister with a housing allowance equal to the rental value of that parsonage, and the minister does not have to include that in income. And the court said that's fine. They didn't strike that. That is okay. That's still there. The other portion is where the minister owns their own home. Takes a job, is called to the church, is hired by the church. They happen to own their own home, and then the church provides a rental allowance for that home. Minister excludes it from income and then still deducts their mortgage payments on their return. The court said, no, that's preferential treatment. Nobody else can do that. If you have an employer-provided housing, such as the parsonage owned by the church, you can pay them fair rent value for that, and they can exclude that from income. That's fine. But the other one is preferential, and the court said that violates. It violated the Establishment Clause. I think it's probably more of an equal protection issue, but I can understand that aspect of it.
And I think you're right. I think that's absolutely fair. Mm-hmm. And we can't ask for preferential treatment. And as you said, we would want them penalizing pastors or parishes.
Right. If the preferential treatment were allowed for ministers, then it'd be just as easy for Congress to enact a law that would penalize ministers, and we certainly wouldn't want that.
Okay, so that's not part of Obamacare.
Correct.
But it does bring us into the part of Obamacare where we're forcing the Catholic Church, we're forcing Christian employers to pay for benefits of an insurance policy that they don't agree with. How then do we have the ability to say, we can't do this because of our faith? How's that going to work?
Well, we'll see how this comes out. It will go to the U.S. Supreme Court because there's a split of opinions amongst the circuit courts of appeal on this issue, and it basically boils down to one issue, as I see it, before the U.S. Supreme Court, and that is whether a corporation has religious beliefs. And if they attribute those religious beliefs of the owners of the corporation to the corporation, then it's most likely the provision in Obamacare is unconstitutional. And that's one analysis that some of the circuit courts have held and have followed that approach. The other courts have said, no, corporation is separate and distinct from the individual owners. The corporation itself does not have religious beliefs, so there's no violation of the Establishment Clause. So it would be interesting to see how the court comes out on it. I would anticipate it's going to be another one of these 5-4 opinions.
Mario, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think Roger is absolutely right because the court is so divided. But I think it's really an easy analysis for them when you think about how many churches today are really incorporated, and then you will be saying then by saying no, or companies cannot have a religious belief, that churches cannot have a religious belief. The churches that are incorporated. So I think it's an easy analysis for them to do, in light of the precedent they have. They just had the Citizens United case where they attributed free speech rights to companies. So I think the answer should be easy for them in the analysis. The problem is, of course, that, the political aspect of Obamacare is so insidious and has had so much impact, I think, even on the court with the previous case. So, but we believe, that religious freedom is so important in our country that we need to put that, paramount in the analysis here. And of course, as it moves along and it deals with even other organizations, non-for-profit. These cases that are going before the Supreme Court are for-profit, but of course we have other cases that deal with non-profits. The Little Sisters of the Poor, for example, is a great example that kind of puts a face into what this administration is trying to do. It seems just common sense that, the Little Sisters of the Poor who take a vow of poverty and celibacy and all these things and go around begging for food now have to pay for contraceptives. I mean, it's just nonsensical, and it violates the Constitution in our view, of course. And I think, there's no reason for it. This is the other part, that just strikes me, especially, just offensive. There's this effort to purposely go and offend a certain group of people because, like I said, when you look at at first when they took time and they said they were going to revise the rule, I thought for sure they would come out and include organizations like the Little Sisters of the Poor and other non-for-profits, but they not. They came back with the same rule that they basically exempts just churches from this mandate. And I think it is basically a slap in the face of all people of faith to go along with other things that we have seen from this administration. So we are hopeful that the Supreme Court will do the right thing here.
I agree that it should be an easy issue. The politics of it is the problem, as I see it. It should be easy on the law, on the analysis, but I fear that it won't be easy for them, and it's going to be close.
So you both agree it's easy, and you both agree, I think, with what you think the outcome should be. But right. What are you saying? Do you think they'll?
I think it depends on Justice Kennedy again. He's at the middle of all of these debates. Last time it was on the individual mandate issue before the Supreme Court. You had, as I had put out in my article 5 days after the law was passed, that the individual mandate was unconstitutional on Commerce Clause grounds. And we have every single justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. When you read all the various opinions of the court's case in June of 2012, every single justice said the individual mandate, if it's a mandate, is unconstitutional on Commerce Clause grounds. The Commerce Clause does not save it because you can't force people to buy insurance. You can't force them to participate in commerce. And every single justice, when you piece all the various opinions together, said that. But for Justice Roberts to then come up with the taxing power was a total shock to me. I think he just felt that this was a duly enacted law of Congress and the president wanted it, and apparently the people wanted it, and so he found a way to get there. I wonder on the second go-around on this issue, given that it is incredibly unpopular, the president's ratings have taken a nosedive. The law's ratings it's not popular at all. We have defections of the Democrats that now are running from it. The president doesn't even call it, if you've noticed. He doesn't even use the phrase Obamacare anymore. He's gone back to the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. I wonder if that would have some influence on the court this time around. I don't know. I think it'll be close in the end.
I think, just as Robert was, as you say, it was very disappointing to see him go out of what he firmly said, during his confirmation process, that he was like an umpire calling balls and strikes. And we saw him really turn around this law to make it fit. And just, to kind of highlight for your listeners, when Congress passed this, it was passed under the idea that this was not a tax. If it had been deemed a tax, it would not have passed. That's the whole point of Obama going over and over and saying this is not a tax, it's not a tax. And so that's what everybody in Congress voted for. And Justice Robert, with one stroke of the pen, just changed that. And if you can see now the reaction, so he says now it is a tax. You can see now all the congressmen, all the senators saying, wait a minute, that's not the law I voted for. It is a simple analysis once again, and we were very disappointed. And I think Roger is right that he saw what happened with that. I think his consideration one of the analysis that I have no real hard evidence on, but my estimation is that his analysis was along the lines of, I want this court to be seen as an impartial body, and I don't want it to be seen as a politician. This law was passed, so I'm going to just stick with it.
Yeah, I agree
and
with
that's
that.
a consideration that he should not be making.
Right.
That the judge should not be making. He should be looking at the law, Constitution, and ruling on those in that basis. And I think he knows it. And I think this time he'll do the right thing. So I think it does fall on Kennedy, as Roger has said.
All right, we've got to take a break right here. But when we come back, I want to address just only another portion of that, because if it was a tax, did it start in the wrong house? And now is it unconstitutional on behalf of that decision? We've got to take this break. I am Tamara Scott. This is Truth for Our Time. We'll be right back after these messages. We're being produced by webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative mmanager
I'm the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
If you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? You can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Hi, I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for staying with us. I have Roger McEowen in office today. Roger McEowen is with the, I'm checking myself on it, can you tell? It's that EOW that
Right.
throws us
The
all
E is
off.
silent.
Okay, Roger McEowen.
Right.
He's with me in studio today from Iowa State University from the Center of Law and Taxation. And if you've not been to that website, which I hadn't been to that website, but go. There are several issues on there that I think will interest you, whether you're in agricultural law or not. Taxation alone should interest you. And again, Roger does 80 to 100 seminars annually. And I'm guessing if you call, there's a phone number on the website. If you call, he'll come give a seminar where you're at and help bring us along on understanding these tax issues. If Americans understood the weight, the impact of most of these laws, there would be an outcry. If we ever paid taxes with a check rather than a withdrawal out of our account, there would be a revolt.
Well, here's another problem on that we've got, Tamara. In this country, 46% of individuals don't pay any federal income tax. They don't care about this. They're not vested in the system,
And people were
but they
mad
all
at,
vote.
People were mad at Romney when he made that statement.
He was off by 1%, but he was exactly right.
And so then they bring in the veterans and those who have paid and are now retired and saying how wrong that is. But let's talk, everybody else that's involved in that number are the folks that live across the street, the people who are driving the Escalade while I'm driving a 98 Tahoe because we're trying to make ends meet and not be foolish and just to be good stewards. All right, on the phone line is Mario Diaz. Mario is with Concerned Women for America. He's a constitutional scholar, and he does their legal studies on issues that deal with their core issues, and you can check them out at cwfa.org. When we were leaving for the break, gentlemen, we had just touched on the base that, was this a tax or a fee? And I think the court maybe did a service or a disservice, depending on how you look at it. Mario, let's start with you. What are your thoughts?
Oh, sorry. I was trying to listen to the rest first. Of course, I think it's a disservice, especially as the law is concerned. Like I said, it is not the proper role of a judge to rewrite a law in order to do whatever he wants, even if what he wants to do is something that is totally honorable and good. He should not be doing that. The Constitution says it is for the legislature to write the law, and it is for the courts to interpret what the law is. So if something must be fixed in the law, let the legislature handle it. That's what the court should have done in that case. So I am I do not buy what some have said, that Judge Roberts, the Chief Justice, had some type of plan that he was actually helping us because of this or that. I think in the long run, you want to establish the judicial system and the law as something that is impartial, that is above the politics that the legislature is pressured on. And I think sometimes we fall way short on that. I think we did in this time.
So, Roger, shouldn't have, should have. What do you think will happen now?
Well, to go back to your question as to whether this is a tax or not, Justice Roberts, whether he was doing this intentionally or not, may have given us something here as akin to a life raft. And what I mean by that is that this bill originated in the United States Senate. Harry Reid took a different bill that didn't pass, and he scooped all that language out and created a shell bill and stuffed the Affordable Care Act legislation into that. Passed the Senate first, and they shipped it to the House, and through the midnight process of reconciliation, they came up with this bill. They bypassed Scott Brown that way, the new senator from Massachusetts. He was a key vote against it. He replaced Senator Kennedy, and they needed to avoid him. They did that through reconciliation. But the point is, this bill originated in the Senate, not in the House. Since Justice Roberts has called the individual mandate a tax, and the whole bill hinges on the individual mandate, if you don't have a mechanism to force people into this system, then the whole bill collapses. So in essence, the bill is a tax bill now, according to the Supreme Court. That trips another clause of the Constitution, and that's the origination clause. And that says that all tax legislation has to originate in the U.S. House. And there is another constitutional challenge that is out there. It is in the trial courts right now. It has escaped. It has survived the government's motion to dismiss. It's scheduled for trial. The lead plaintiff in the case happens to be from Iowa. From the Iowa City area. And that's going to take probably a couple of years to unwind, but I think the Supreme Court, if this legislation is still standing, and it may not be at the end of the day, there may be a revolt out there amongst the politicians that are trying to run from this, that this has dramatically changed a year from now. But if it still stands, then this constitutional challenge will eventually get to the Supreme Court, and there's a second live constitutional challenge that's out there, and that has to do with the taxing being unequal. Because one of the exemptions from the individual mandate is if you're too poor. If you don't have enough income, you're not subject to the individual mandate, you're not subject to the penalty. What happens is they kick you into Medicaid. As part of the Supreme Court opinion last summer, they ruled the Medicaid portion of Obamacare unconstitutional, where it was forcing states to participate in this and pick up costs. So states can do this at their option, but they can't be forced into it. What you end up now with is a patchwork quilt of Medicaid programs at the state level. And so these people that are too poor, according to their household income level, to be forced into buying insurance through an exchange, they're exempt. They get thrown into the state's Medicaid program, and that differs from state to state. So the argument is, in this second case, that the tax is apportioned unequally across the country to similarly situated people. And that's a second constitutional challenge that's out there, and that one could reach the Supreme Court in the next few years.
I just put a link up on the chat if you want to come to the webcast1live.com website and join the chat room. I just put a link up from the Morning Consult. It's an analysis on the healthcare situation and Obama's approval rating in November. Things are greatly declining for Obamacare, for Democrats, and I would think this would be a huge area of concern for them. And I want you to keep us posted on this. We'll try and follow it along as well. But I want to talk about a couple more things. When you're talking to Americans, unfortunately, a lot of times we don't want to deal with it till it hits our backyard. And the marriage penalty, what you were explaining to me before we came on air, is huge. Give us the nutshell.
Under the American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2012, which was signed into law in the first week of January of this year, there is a provision called marriage penalty relief. Now, I find that absurd because it's not really relief. It might be if your income is sufficiently low enough, but as you work your way up through the income tax brackets, it's actually a very penalty that becomes more substantial the more income that you have. What the law did was put it on the top end, a new 39.6% tax bracket. And at lower levels of income than when that top bracket kicks in, you start losing exemptions, you start losing itemized deductions. So your effective rate starts to rise well before you get to the 39.6. The way they set this thing up is that I have this actual example that I use in our tax seminars, and it came to me from a CPA out in the state of Washington who wanted me to run it through tax software that we use and double check him, and it turned out his numbers are exactly right. Based on his client's situation, this is an actual situation, the number of kids that they have, exemptions and passive sources of income, for example. We were able to show and project that for this couple who each have incomes, the husband and wife each earn about $400,000 every year. The cut for the new 39.6% rate is $450,000. On a married filing joint return, their federal tax liability was about $265,000 on that $800,000. If they were living together, not married, that drops to $232,000. So you save $32,000 to $33,000 every year by simply not being married. Everything else stays the same. Just not being married, you save over $30,000 in federal taxes every year under this bill.
Now, for most Americans who are going to look at that income level and say, well, they're wealthy, we have this whole mentality of they deserve it or they can pay it, which is wrong. It's absolutely a wrong idea. If it's a nose in the tent and we're penalizing anyone on an income plus, how do you know whether to allot someone because they're poor, an exception, or are they poor or are they just simply lazy?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. And with respect to this marriage penalty, the marriage penalty is there from about 100,000 married filing joint on up, and it just gets progressively worse as you work your way up through the income scale. So this couple that has 800,000 on married filing joint return really gets hit hard. It really starts on a joint return a little over 100,000 combined income of the spouses. So there's a lot of people in that. There's a lot of small businesses in that because over 70% of small businesses are operated on a pass-through basis. It's either an S corporation or a partnership, and they flow that through to an individual return. So when you increase taxes such as this, or you have, for example, a state income tax proposal that increases rates at a high level, it's not just individuals at a high level. We've got to think about small businesses that are flowing that income through to individual returns. And there are a lot of small businesses that are going to have $500,000 worth of income,
Sure.
$1 million worth of income, even $10 million in your small business. They get hit substantially hard by this, and anytime the rates go up. So that's another factor to keep in mind.
Mario Diaz, I'd like to hear your take on this. And along with that, to me, that's a religious liberty issue because now you're going to hit the very, very sacred vow of marriage.
Right. It goes right along with what this administration has been doing in undermining, really, the sacred institution and the family and showing little regard for the things that Americans care most about. And let me just say this, just in general. This, I think, ties into everything Roger had been talking about, even the fact that it was a tax but not originated in the House and everything. The Senate specifically is such a dysfunctioning body right now under this president that the way this bill was done was so wrong in so many levels that they don't know what they did. We've all heard Nancy Pelosi saying, you have to pass it so you know what is in the bill. And that it's not just her saying, this was the way this was done. And so many things, the fact that it wasn't originated in the House, they got past that by one day deeming it passed, even without even voting on it. I mean, they just did so many things to ram this through with no support from any Republican. That it's really just a bad mark on the history of this nation. The way this big important issue that so many people care about was done. It just reflects on all these things that Roger has been talking about. They probably had no idea what they were doing because they just wanted to get it done. It was a matter of passing it, and then we can figure out. Once it is established, then we can figure out what we want to do. And so I think that is shameful. It is why we need to really fight against this law in terms of repealing it and putting something more sensible in instead of just trying to tinker with it, because the foundations of the law, the way it was created, was such an unwise way. And those examples that Roger is talking about are just a few of the many, many issues that this law has. And then the second point I made in that is that, and this is more of the political aspect of it, Roger talked in the beginning about how, math doesn't escape anybody. The answer in the other side as to why was this done this way? Why were so many things left unattended to? I think the political aspect is that we know this president, from his own statement, that his vision of health care for this nation is the single-payer plan. And he said, but we can't get that now. We cannot get rid of the employer benefits right now, he said. We need a vehicle to get us there. And that is where we are now.
And when you go back to the statements of the sponsors of this legislation, at the very beginning, in my article on the website details all of this. We went and researched that. And what were the legislators saying? This was clearly not about health insurance. It's not about health care. It's about wealth redistribution. That's exactly what they were after. The statements of Max Baucus are clear on that. The statements of other key leaders in both the House and the Senate, they were trying to find a mechanism to substantially redistribute wealth in the United States. This happened to be the vehicle. This has nothing to do, very little to do with health insurance or health care. And they found the vehicle, and they wanted to get there however they got there, and they rammed it through.
Now, I have a poll, the one that I put on our chat line for folks, but Democrats as well are losing favor.
Right.
With their own, the distrust amongst their own party. We always hear about the rift within the Republican Party, but I think things are looking pretty fractured on the Democratic side.
And based on what the Senate did last week in overturning over 230 years of precedent in the United States by going with the so-called nuclear option,
right,
and avoiding the filibuster, to me, as an outside analyst looking at this and the impact that might have on tax policy or whatever else they do, I think the leaders in the Senate think that they're going down the drain, and this is the last hope they have. They're going to pack the courts. They're going to get their judges in that have lifetime appointments because they fear for their lives in the political elections in the fall of 2014, or else they would not have taken that drastic step that has never occurred in this country.
And again, there you have another example where the Senate moved again against its own rules. There is a way, there is a mechanism, there are rules as to how the Senate majority can change the rules at the beginning of the Congress. It requires 60 votes. But they, again, just went around that and did whatever they want. They approved this, like you said, overturning over 200 years of history with a simple majority. They did it.
And the other problem we have with this, I'm in the midst of teaching a number of seminars where we're going through the Affordable Care Act, and we practically, literally have to revise the presentation every night because of executive orders coming out of the White House where it's a unilateral change to the law. It doesn't go through the Congress, and we've got to come back in and revise our presentation for the next day because the president has done something while we were speaking that day to move the individual mandate a year, move the employer mandate, or move the individual mandate 4 months, move the employer mandate a year, change it with respect to insurance companies to say, well, you don't have to have your plans comply until 2015. It's just nightmarish, these changes that get made on a unilateral basis with none of this going through the Congress.
We got to take a break. Mario, can you stay with us when we come back?
Sure, I'll be glad to.
I want to get to Team Whitney on your website, the young lady who has MS and has lost her health insurance. Thank you, Obamacare. And I want to touch on some of the things that we can do. We're hearing it's too late. It's already in place. You cannot repeal it. I want to talk about how we possibly can do that when we come back. We'll be right back after this message. I am Tamara Scott. You're watching on webcast1live.com, and I hope you'll stay tuned with us right after these messages.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device, your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom! Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hey, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I want to tell you about our brand new time slot. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's on the same night, Tuesdays. We now follow Ed Fallon and the Fallon Forum on webcast1live.com. I want to tell you a little bit about our show. Our show is focused on local, state, and national, and sometimes international politics. We like to keep people updated and informed. We also have very interesting guests. So please join us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
And thanks for joining us and staying with us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time on Webcast One Live production, webcast1live.com. Mario Diaz, a constitutional scholar from Concerned Women for America, is on phone, and Roger McEowen is with us from Iowa State University Law and Center for Law and Taxation. Fascinating material. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a math person. And I really don't like anything to do with the taxation, the IRS, or any of those topics. But it's really, I find myself wanting to ask him if he'll come back again on a variety of topics that we get to discuss off break. And so I thank you, both of you, for being with us today. We had just spoken about whether or not it's too late. And I just heard someone tell a room full of political folks, including candidates, that it's too late to repeal Obamacare. I say it's never too late for anything.
Right.
This country was founded on folks who decided we're not taking this anymore and totally changed the form of government and the independence of this nation. So, Mario, what's your take on that?
No, it is absolutely not too late. And we have some folks that are willing to fight. We just need some more of them. So I think, this will be, of course, a big issue in the coming elections. And we need to make it clear to those whom we support that this is not only what we want, but what the country needs, really. As you can see, just the enormous problems this legislation is creating. And I know there are several other ideas that are out there, and that's what we need to do. We are not saying there is no problem with health care, that nothing should be done, but we are saying this legislation is changing not only health care, but as Roger has been talking about, just the way our government functions, just historical things that have protected us from the tyranny of leaders in any given period. Things that our founder put on our Constitution to protect us, like, 3 branches of government that are not supposed to that is intended to create that friction within Congress that produces the best outcome for the people. All those things are fundamentally being changed by the way this president has approached not only this issue but others. And I think we need to fight against this law. If we let it cement in, then it will become almost impossible. And we have seen these on other issues, on other things we have done on our country, where now you create this whole industry of people depending on this, and then it becomes increasingly harder. So the time is now to do this, to come up with a plan that repeals this legislation and replaces it with something that can help and get the ball rolling to get the healthcare system where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just add to that. I think as every day goes by and you see more and more problems with this legislation, that it may just collapse upon itself, and the politicians may not have to do anything. It'll be easy to repeal at some point in time because they'll all be running from it, those that supported it. That's one aspect of it. It cannot work. Again, it's a math problem. They cannot repeal the laws of math. It won't work. And if the politicians sense that the public is really excised about this, then I think a repeal would be easy. Now, the solution to it, actually, about 10 years ago, a nice solution to the health care issues for the vast majority of people did actually become law. Now, I do understand the people that have pre-existing conditions. I understand the moral imperative behind the health care law. I get it. I fully understand that. The way to go about that is to, first of all, loosen up competition amongst insurance companies and let them compete across state lines. That's step one. Step two is tort reform. Get tort reform in there. And then third, privatize it. The problem in the health insurance market and this whole issue is not a new issue. This goes back into the 1930s when another political deal was struck to tie health insurance to an employer. And that's really problematic. And one of the things that, one of the steps to remove the tie between health insurance and an employer about 10 years ago was the creation of health savings accounts. Those are private health accounts. It's like an IRA. You can contribute up to a certain amount into that account each year. You get a tax deduction for doing that. The income in that account grows tax-free, and then when you use the funds and they're distributed out of the account to pay your medical bills, you don't include it back in income. And that income can continue to grow tax-free. You can invest it as aggressive as you want, but the point is that's not tied to an employer. That's your money.
It's your money.
It's your money, and you own your policy. And if you change your job, it goes with you. That is a tremendous step in the right direction. Unfortunately, that has not been tailored even more fine-tuned by the Congress. They've not put additional incentives with that. And in fact, the Obamacare legislation puts a cap on how much you can contribute to something similar to that, a flex spending account. Now, we just did get relief on that about 2 weeks ago from the Internal Revenue Service. They're now allowing a $500 carryover from year to year. You don't have to spend all of the funds in your flex account. But a flex account is different than a health savings account. So for those people that are relatively healthy, health savings accounts are a really good deal. And that's one thing that some people need to look at. And most of them, the vast majority of those, slide in as exempt from Obamacare. And that's something that people need to be aware of.
And remember that some of most of those ideas have been introduced by Republicans. Remember,
yes.
Paul Ryan had,
multiple times.
Yeah, multiple times, and it has been the Democrats who have stopped them from going through, and instead, because they wanted this, and I as we have suggested here and said, Roger and I, it's because it was about more than health care. Right. It was about redistributing wealth and this whole concept that they want to push through. So there you have the solutions are there, and we can do those only if we are able to repeal this law and stop with some who are saying that maybe it can just be tinkered with here and there and fixed somehow.
Yeah. The health insurance market has been messed with by politicians for about 7 decades, and we're seeing the fruit of that problem now. And this is not the solution to it. Hopefully the Congress can get this figured out, or a sufficient majority of them can get it figured out and actually come up with a solution that is helpful.
The problem with these laws is that they impact everything we do. They impact our lives. And so you need to not be shy about contacting your legislator, even when they're at home. Not on the holiday, for crying out loud. Let's give everybody a break. But when they're home, you can call them in their home districts because everything they do affects you in your home. I'm going to read a quick story, just a paragraph about Whitney. This is on the Concerned Women for America website, and you can do a hashtag Team Whitney on Twitter. But she's a beautiful 26-year-old mother with MS due to Obamacare, and that's a picture of Whitney right there for those of you who are watching on webcast1live.com. For those of you who are listening on a podcast, I'm sorry, you can go to the Concerned Women for America website to see her, but she is a young lady, 26-year-old mother who has MS. She actually just found out that in order to be added to her husband's insurance, which is the route she thought she was going to be able to take, it will cost her $900 a month. The insurance is awful. It doesn't cover her treatments. She has to pay $5,000 out of pocket before any co-insurance picks up, and she simply can't afford the $900 per month. Plus, She got word that type 1 from another friend that type 1 diabetes just got quoted on a premium of $600 per month with a $14,000 deductible. $14,000 deductible. Friends, that is a health savings account because it's coming out of your pocket. It's a health debt account is what that is, a health deficit account. Because you might as well be saving, and you're better off to have your own money, have responsibility for it, be the curator of it, and know where it's at, than to be at someone else's whim that can change momentarily without any notice. And you can get more information on that at the CWFA website. But I see you shaking your head, Roger. I mean, does this just astound you?
No. That's wait until the employer mandate kicks in and you see about another 50 to 100 million policies get canceled. We haven't seen anything yet. We're talking 5 to 7 million people that have been affected by canceled policies. That employer mandate hasn't kicked in yet, and the president punted that for another year.
Which he couldn't. I mean, the California...
Technically, yeah, you can't do that, but he did change the law because he knows, he's been advised, I'm sure, that you're going to have massive cancellations on all these policies that are routed through employers. That's really where the majority of people have their health insurance. It's through an employer. Once that mandate kicks in, you've got massive cancellations that are forthcoming.
Not to mention the people who are already losing their 40-hour work weeks because employers can't afford to cover them.
And there's no requirement that an employer has to employ someone full-time. So to get out from underneath the requirements of the law, they can keep their workforce below a certain level, and they're exempt. And so that's why you see part-time jobs increasing, full-time jobs decreasing.
It's a disincentive. It's a disincentive to business. It prohibits business from growing and expanding. What we've talked about throughout this program is a disincentive for people to earn money. The fact that we have somebody who are not earning money, not paying an income tax. We're down to our last 3 or 4 minutes, and I want to give both you and Mario closing comments. I want to remind our folks as well that tomorrow is Thanksgiving. I hope somewhere you take time to be thankful. If you have a feast with family, great. You're one of the blessed, one of the few, if you have good family that you can even get close to and share time with. You're blessed. But if you have no family, and if you were to fast all day tomorrow, I often ask my kids this, what if the books got it wrong? They added a letter and it were Thanksgiving fast rather than Thanksgiving feast. Would we still be grateful? That's on the top of my Facebook page right now. Would we still be grateful? Your gratefulness, your grateful heart shouldn't come from what you have or what you possess. It is an attitude from within. And our founding fathers knew how important it was. We've talked about George Washington's proclamation, the first national proclamation for a Thanksgiving Day. And I hope you'll take time out, stay away from the malls. Tomorrow is Family Day. I don't care who opens. I'm disgusted with all of them who do. So, Roger, let's give you just a minute. We'll go to Mario for a minute to close.
Well, again, thanks for having me here this morning. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed the discussion. I hope it wasn't too technical for a lot of people and that they could follow us along. We do have one major seminar remaining in Iowa, and that's in Ames on about 3 weeks from now. We'll have close to 400 at that one. But if people would like to come to that, contact our office.
Is there a cost?
Yes, there's a cost. This is for practitioners.
Okay.
If they're CPA, if they're attorneys, they think are not signed up, they may want to just let them know that this is available. And I found it interesting that you started the program with the Mayflower Compact. I do start my undergraduate course every spring at Iowa State with the Mayflower Compact and the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. And I've never yet had a student that has told me that this wasn't the first time that they'd seen that.
Really?
Yeah, nobody had ever seen that.
Oh, Mario, does that just... I hear you laughing, but it's just so pathetically sad. And yet, I have to admit, I don't think I ever saw it in school.
Oh, my goodness. Mm-hmm. Well, let me say, first, thank you again for having me. It was a pleasure to be with Roger. And, your listeners should know that we here in the nation's capital love Tamara Scott, hold her in high regard.
Thank you.
I will just simply say, and it kind of ties into this last comment that we've been saying, we really believe at CWA that it is up to you and me, the individuals out there, talking about this, getting past the political partisanship and getting past it, just getting the snippets that the media wants to tell us, and just learning from people like Roger and educating ourselves, praying first of all, but sharing with our friends and family and letting them know what is going on, the effects this is having, the stories like the story of Whitney. That is how we can change our country around, our culture. It has to be with the individual, talking in Thanksgiving dinners, and sharing their hearts. So I encourage them to do so, and of course, if they are in Iowa, they should contact you and become members of CWA too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mario. Thank you for the kind words. Okay. We are out of time, listeners, and to our viewers. Understand, if God expects you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it. Take time out, read His Word, have some quiet time, but always in everything you do, be encouraged and never be complacent. Thanks for joining us.